The night she came to me crying, the world felt quieter than it ever had before, as if even the walls were holding their breath. I remember the sound of her knock soft at first, almost apologetic, then louder, desperate, cutting through the silence like a warning I didn't yet understand. When I opened the door, she stood there shaking, her eyes red and hollow, clutching her coat as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. She didn't speak right away. She just looked at me, and in that look was fear, shame, confusion, and a kind of heartbreak so heavy it made my chest ache before she said a single word. I pulled her inside, closed the door behind her, and in that moment I knew something irreversible had happened. This wasn't just a bad night. This was the kind of night that changes the shape of a life forever. She finally whispered, "I don't know who I married," and those words echoed louder than any scream. The man she had trusted, loved, defended in front of friends and family, the man whose name she carried, was suddenly a stranger. As she sat there on my couch, crying into her hands, fragments of the truth spilled out in broken sentences. Late nights explained away by work. Phones turned face down. Sudden trips that never made sense. Small lies stacked on top of each other until they became a wall she could no longer see through. That night, the wall collapsed. She hadn't just discovered a secret. She had discovered an entire second life, another woman, another routine, another version of her husband that existed in parallel to the one she thought she knew. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the terrifying moment when reality cracks open and you realize the person sleeping beside you has been living a double life right in front of your eyes. It's about how love can blind us, how trust can be quietly manipulated, and how the truth, when it finally arrives, doesn't come gently. It crashes in and leaves wreckage behind. As you listen, you'll walk with her through the signs she ignored, the clues she explained away, and the final discovery that made denial impossible. You'll feel the weight of her confusion, the anger she tried to bury, and the pain of realizing that the life she built was based on half-truths and carefully crafted lies. Stay with me through this story, because what unfolds next isn't just about what he did, it's about what she had to become in order to survive it. It's about the strength it takes to face a truth you never wanted, the courage required to choose yourself when everything familiar falls apart, and the haunting question that lingers. Long after the tears dry, how well do we ever truly know the people we love? The doorbell rang just once, soft but desperate, the kind of sound that carries fear inside it. When I opened the door, she collapsed into my arms, shaking, her eyes swollen from crying. Her clothes were neat, too neat for someone who had run through the night, as if she had left in a hurry, but still tried to look normal. Inside the house, she sat silently on the edge of the sofa, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. For several minutes, she said nothing. The clock ticked loudly, each second stretching the silence. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said she didn't know who her husband really was. The man she married, the man who smiled in wedding photos and touched her forehead gently every night, was not the man who came home after dark anymore. She explained how it started with small things: missed calls, sudden trips, passwords changed without explanation. At first, she blamed herself. Maybe she was too needy. Maybe marriage just changes people. But then the lies began to overlap, collapsing into each other. One night, she followed him. Not because she suspected betrayal, but because something inside her was screaming. What she discovered wasn't another woman standing alone in the shadows. It was an entirely different version of her husband, confident, cold, living a life that didn't include her at all. She told me about the apartment. A place she had never seen, filled with furniture she didn't recognize and photos where she didn't exist. In that space, her husband laughed differently, spoke differently, even dressed differently. He had another name there. Another routine. Another story. The realization didn't hit all at once, it arrived in painful fragments. Every memory she once trusted now felt contaminated. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. He didn't even apologize. He looked relieved, as if he was tired of pretending. He said he had always lived like this, long before she came into his life. He loved her, he claimed, but only in the version of life where she fit conveniently. The truth crushed her not because of betrayal alone, but because her marriage had been built on a lie so deep that even love felt scripted. That night, he didn't follow her when she left. He didn't call. The silence was louder than any argument. As she sat in my living room, the weight of her words filled the air. She kept repeating one sentence, "I married a stranger." Her hands trembled as she described how she had ignored the warning signs, how friends had noticed changes before she did. She remembered defending him, making excuses, choosing love over instinct. The worst pain wasn't anger, it was grief. Grief for the future she had planned, for the children she imagined, for the trust she gave so freely. She felt embarrassed, ashamed, as if she should have known better. I reminded her that deception works because it hides in affection. People like him don't just lie, they perform. And she had believed the performance because she believed in love. That wasn't weakness. That was humanity. Slowly, her breathing steadied. The tears came again, but this time they were different, less frantic, more honest. She wasn't running anymore. She was standing in the truth, even though it hurt. Morning light crept through the curtains, soft and unforgiving. She hadn't slept. Neither had I. As dawn arrived, something shifted inside her. The fear that brought her to my door had changed into clarity. She knew she could never return to a life where she questioned her own reality. She spoke about rebuilding, not immediately, not easily, but deliberately. She would leave. She would heal. She would learn to trust herself again before trusting anyone else. When she finally stood up to leave, she looked lighter, not because the pain was gone, but because she was no longer carrying it alone. Before stepping outside, she turned back and said, "He had two lives. I'm choosing one my own," and in that moment, I knew she wasn't broken. She was free. As the truth finally settles and the echoes of that night fade into silence, one thing becomes painfully clear. Some betrayals don't just break hearts, they shatter entire lives, and healing begins only when the truth is faced head-on. If this story moved you, reminded you of someone, or made you feel less alone, then you're not the only one. Stories like these are told so that pain doesn't stay hidden in the dark. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If you want more powerful, emotional, real-life inspired stories that reveal the secrets people are afraid to speak about, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today, and let us know in the comments what part of this story touched you the most. Until the next story, take care of your heart and remember, truth always finds its way to the light.